on the second point, Russ, I am fascinated by this because I used to watch wrestling when I was young. I used to watch wrestling in the late 90s when everybody used to watch wrestling, and I still tune into a few wrestling podcasts because I find the whole, it's quite fun and interesting.
Of course.
And Fulham get mentioned on wrestling podcasts all the time. Yeah. And these wrestling commentators are asking, what do these Fulham fans think of this guy appearing on a wrestling TV show in America when he's supposed to be the director of football? I mean, you said it's a full-time job. By the way, in football, a full-time job is not 40 hours a week. It's 80 hours a week, isn't it?
That's right, Ben. Of course.
So I just spin the question on you because when you see Jamie Carragher going on TV calling him a clown for arguing with fans on Twitter, and don't get me wrong, if he's been given a script and playing he's acting on the wrestling show, fine, whatever, but he's not being a director of football when he's doing that, is he?
Right.
And there's a bit of a sense that, people are suspicious of him, and at worst, laughing at him. I think. What's your view from the inside?
Well, what's interesting about this, and I will say this, I believe Tony believes he could do all three jobs equally. And I do, and again, there are fans that think that he doesn't care about Fulham Football Club. I disagree with that. I just think that you need someone in charge that is specifically just concentrating on Fulham Football Club, someone that could actually be at Craven Cottage, at Motspur Park all the time, working with the head coach, and now being Marco Silva. So when you have someone that's this far away that believes that he can do it all, and I truly believe he believes that, I think that I think it's too much for one person to do, and I think that he should pass on his duties to someone else. Doesn't sound like it's going to be the case. And I got to be honest with you, I think he should just become the next Vince McMahon, because
do the wrestling.
Just be Vince McMahon. He wants to. It's obvious to me that he likes that role. Be Vince McMahon. It's okay to be Vince McMahon, the promoter. He's good at that. But hand off to someone that can actually be concentrating solely on Fulham. That's where I stand on that. And again, I was willing to give him time to see if he could really work this out. But honestly, you have these relegations. At some point, you have to say it's time to move on. So I'm there now with it. If he kept Fulham in the league, if Fulham stayed in the Premier League, I would have said, okay, stick with Tony. But he failed. The team failed. So change is needed, but they're not going in that direction. They're going in the direction that they brought in Silva. We'll talk about him in a bit. I just don't think they went far enough. And I think ultimately, when we talk about Fulham being a yo-yo club, Ben, this to me, the management structure of Fulham with Tony as director of football is going to hinder that. And I hate to say that. And again, this is not personal against Tony. I just think that it's just asking too much of someone to do 3 full-time jobs altogether. And like you said, it's not a 40-hour work week. It's an 80-hour work week.
100%, yeah. And you know what football fans expect. And if I can bring it back to my club, Ipswich, who've just had a very unsuccessful owner who wasn't there every day of the week and who did run a company, but then didn't delegate things down to, I would say, underlings. But, if it's okay to, delegate things down. And then, of course, you hear this idea, is Fulham a vehicle to have NFL in London and, all of these other interests? And look, we understand that very rich people have their fingers in lots of pies, and often to very successful effect. You would know way better than I about that because you know so much about American sport, where the same guy will own franchises in 3 or 4 different sports, plus a TV network, plus a newspaper, plus all of that stuff. But English football's a little bit different, isn't it? It's come from the idea of, the butcher's son or whatever at Manchester United going on and owning the club, and like you say, virtually living there. So
right, exactly.
It's certainly something that's grown legs with Tony Khan, and whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it is the only club that's regularly mentioned to people who are watching wrestling on the TV in America.
It's crazy, and again, it's funny because I mentioned this on a prior show, Ben. I have Sirius XM radio, and also on my TV, they've been promoting AEW's event in New York City. Tony's all over my TV. He's all over my radio, and it has nothing to do with Fulham. It has to do with AEW. And I'm thinking, concentrate on that, Tony. Concentrate on that. And to your point, Ben, you're talking about American owners buying multiple sports teams. That's common. I'll even use Liverpool as an example. John Henry doesn't make the decisions ultimately. Yes, he owns Liverpool, but he has a team in Liverpool running Liverpool. So again, why doesn't Fulham have a similar structure where you can own the team, but you pass it on to people that actually are concentrating solely on your team? And Tony feels that he can do all three. And again, I don't know. It hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out. And I wish that he would just concentrate on AEW. But it is what it is. And I think, again, I think it's a factor in why Fulham are a yo-yo club, going back to that. But you brought up a good point about the money. I think there's something else going on with Fulham there, Ben.
In what respect?
Meaning that the fact that you have Tony in charge of basically shopping for the groceries, as we would say over here, picking the players. And, he is, again, concentrating on two other ventures, and it's difficult to get all three done at the same time.
And the ridiculous thing, Russ, is we're talking about a family that's worth literally billions. Literally billions. That should be the biggest asset you can possibly have in football, isn't it? Independent wealth to bail you out of any situation. But like you suggested, if it's I was going to say third or fourth, it doesn't even matter. If it's not first on your priority to-do list, then you know how competitive English football is.
Exactly.
You'll get chewed up and spat out by somebody who has got it first on their priority list.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.